Hey everyone, so welcome to the, preparing for a qualifier webinar. We're going to be talking today about what to kind of expect at your qualifier coming up for those who are new this season or who are veterans and just wanting a reminder since we didn't have in-person events last year, or if you're trying to learn about the new judging format that they started last year, if you weren't with us for that. So there's a lot of hopefully great information. As you heard the voice at the start, we're going to be recording this today. So if you want to go back and reference it, we'll post it online to the playlist, and it'll be in next week's email so everybody can see that. For those who don't know me, I am Drew Wisnett. I am one of the program delivery partners for First LEGO League here in Alabama. I'm also the state judge advisor. Joining me today, we also have my wife, Taylor. You want to introduce yourself, Taylor?
Sorry, Taylor Wisnett. The other program delivery partner, whereas Drew handles a lot more on team communication kind of side of things. I handle more event management with Jamie, who I'm sure is going to get introduced next because he is our host this year. So y'all go ahead.
Yeah, we also have Jamie McClung, who is here with us today.
Hello, I'm the first senior mentor, and I got a lot of stuff going on at Fort Payne this year, so I'm working nonstop getting those ready to go.
And for a lot of our teams this year, Fort Payne is one of our qualifier locations. So a lot of our teams will be competing in Fort Payne in their qualifier. And Fort Payne is also the site of the state competition. So Jamie's going to be involved with a lot of planning for those events. So as we go through this, if you like, you can just drop a message in the chat. Taylor's going to be monitoring that. And so whenever we get a few of those, we'll pause for questions as we can. And then we'll also have some time at the end for questions separately. So I'll just give us a couple of seconds, see if anyone has any questions before we get started, and then we will be on our way. All right, so I'm going to be going back and forth between some slides with very minimal information on them and some documents, and I'll have links to where you can find all these posted sometime after the video is uploaded. Qualifier dates. So we have confirmed the dates. They are, there's the Fort Payne qualifier is on January 29th. The Mobile qualifier and the Hampton Cove qualifier are on February 5th, and we will be sending teams their assignment based on the responses we received through yesterday. That email will be going out on Tuesday to everybody else, but teams will know exactly where they're going on Tuesday. All right, so on our agenda today, we're talking about a little bit about what you're going to see on the day of your event, what you need to worry about the days before your event, what you might want to worry about after the day of your event, and then we'll have our question and answer session. So we're going to start by talking about on the day of, because that's the best place to kind of start here. We're going to talk about a sample schedule, and we're going to talk about who, when, and where a lot. So who needs to worry about what things, when are things going to happen, and where do you need to be? We're also talking about things you should bring and things you should not bring, but we will jump into that. So I'm going to stop sharing this, and I'm going to open up another document that I have. It is this one. Let's see. Let me find my Zoom, and we will share that screen. And I believe this is the one I want. So this is the spreadsheet we use to generate the schedule. So I'm going to kind of go through what you can expect to see on the day of your event. This is an example event where we've got 24 teams, and we're going to be following the team in pit number 10, which is team 100, my super awesome team. Teams 1 through 9 and teams 11 through 24, I'm sure are great teams, but they're not my team, so I do not care about them today. I care about what is my team doing today. So when we talk about your team, there's going to be two numbers you really care about. You're going to know what pit number you're in, and you're going to want to know what your team number is. Everything we talk about at an event is going to be in reference to one of those two numbers. Most often, they're going to use your pit number just because it's a simple number. Everybody's going to have one, and you'll know what your number is when you get there and checked in. But the first thing you want to do after you get checked in is figure out what is your team on the schedule. And that way you'll know kind of what you're looking for as you go throughout your day. So I found my team. Mine is team 100, my super awesome team, and I am in pit number 10. I'm going to pull up the global schedule first. Now, this is all based on some things that are flexible in terms of like what time does everything start? What time does everything end? All of that is going to depend on your qualifier. What's not going to change, though, is what happens and the order things happen in. So the first thing that's going to happen is there's going to be registration. From the start of the day for about half an hour, there's going to be a period where your team can arrive and check in and get your check-in packet. And that is registration. That's the first thing you're going to want to do. And as soon as you get there and get in, that's what's going to happen. That's the only thing that's going to happen during that window. As soon as registration is over, there's going to be a coaches meeting. The coaches meeting is all of the coaches, the head referee, and the judge advisor if the judge advisor is available. This is really more of a meeting for the head referee to kind of go over some expectations for the day and just do check-in with the coaches. Be prepared. Your head referee will ask you, coaches, raise your hand if you've read the rules. Your head referee is almost definitely going to ask that question. And they're going to go over some common rules they see teams not be as aware of as they could be. This happened a lot in the past when there was the rule about your robot can't be more than 12 inches. So they would go over that rule. That's not a rule this year, obviously, because we haven't talked about it at all. But that's your opportunity for the head referee to kind of say, here's what we're doing today. Here's anything you need to be aware of that you may not be aware of. And it's also your chance to ask the head referee any questions. After the coaches meeting is the judging period. In this case, it's about a 4-hour window. Obviously, your team is not going to be judging for the full 4 hours, but we'll talk about how to know when your team is judging and what to worry about then. You'll also notice there's a practice round kind of happening during that same period. So there is overlap between judging and your practice round. So your team will be judging for part of that time, and your team will be in a practice round for part of that time. And your schedule will tell you when your team is supposed to be and where they're supposed to be. After the practice round and judging, there will be a lunch period. After the lunch period, there is an opening ceremony period. We do the opening ceremony after all the morning stuff, because in the morning, all of this stuff, there's really nothing for anybody to look at. Your team is going to be doing the stuff they've been practicing. Your team is going to be practicing. And there's not really a lot of things for like parents and grandparents and siblings to like watch and cheer on. So if you're trying to say, hey, maybe you guys should show up at this time when you get your schedule, and your qualifier manager will give you your schedule closer to time, but it's after lunch that the public really has stuff that they can see. So we have the opening ceremony. After the opening ceremony, we have competition round 1, then we have competition round 2, then we have competition round 3, and then we have the closing ceremony. So and like I said, this is a bigger event. This has 24 teams in it. This event is scheduled for registration to start at 7, and then the closing ceremony is supposed to start just before 4 o'clock. In the morning, again, not a lot to do here. And everything you see here, the only 2 things that happen at the same time are the judging time and the practice round time. But again, your times won't overlap. That's just kind of, we do these 2 activities at the same time so that the day doesn't drag on for an extra hour. So that's kind of the overall schedule. Do we have any questions at this point? Not, I'll keep going and then I'll pause if something pops up. So that's great and wonderful because that's everybody's schedule. But what about me? What about my team? So I'm going to pull up what I call the detail schedule. And so the detail schedule lists for every team what time things happen. So I don't care about teams 1 through 9 right now, but I do care about team 10. That's my super awesome team. My judging will start at 9:30 and my judging will end at 10 o'clock. So if you weren't with us last season, this is the new judging format where instead of going into 3 different judging rooms and having 3 judging sessions, you have 1 judging session for 30 minutes. And we'll talk about what that looks like in a minute. Your practice round for this team is at 8:45. Now, a practice round is your 2.5-minute match. It's your chance to kind of get a feel for the table, and you'll go in there and do that. So you have your practice round at 8:45. You have your judging at 9:30 to 10. Notice those don't overlap. Then we care about when are my competition rounds. My first one is at 1:27. My second one is at 2:18. And my third one is at 3:09. These times are going to look weird. It's just because the matches are 2.5 minutes long and we try to get them moving as quickly as we can. One thing that we always tell everybody is that the schedule can and will change. We can get ahead of schedule. It's not likely, but we can. We can get behind schedule. We almost definitely will get behind schedule at a lot of events you go to. But we always try to kind of get it caught back up. So it is your responsibility to kind of keep up with, have things changed, and by how much have they changed. If we get too far ahead of schedule, we'll try to take a little break so that we can get back on schedule so that we're not, rushing everybody around. But these are basically the times that are super important for your team. When am I going to be with judges? When do I get to practice? When are my competition rounds? Any questions on that part of your schedule? And I'll keep going. And like I said, if I see questions, we'll pause back. Now, what's interesting and what you might care about are these times, but also these locations. So I'm going to pull up now the schedule for referees. This schedule tells referees where you're going to be and what time you're going to be there. So for the practice round, we're going to have my team is going to be on table B at 8:45, and I can see that team 9 is also going to be there. Now, one thing that we tried to do in this schedule is that your first round, your competition round, you will be on the same table, and the other table will have the same team that you saw in your practice round, so that you can really get the most out of your practice round and try to recreate it in a competition round. So everybody has that for the first round. It's not necessarily in the same order, but it is all the same teams on the same tables. In your second round, you look here, you're on table C, and it's at the time when your other schedule said you would be, but this time you're against or with team 11. And then in your final round, you're on table A, and you're against with team 23 on the other table. And this is a schedule that the referees will definitely have, the cuers will have. So even if you don't know exactly where to go once you get in the competition room, there will be people there to direct you where to go. That really covers most of the schedule. Taylor or Jamie, anything to add about schedule? Any questions about the schedule? Remember, your global schedule tells you what everything is. As a team, you need to go to registration as a coach. You as a coach go to the coaches meeting. Your team has a judging session. Your team has a practice round. Everybody goes to lunch. Everybody goes to the opening ceremony. Your team has a first round match. Your team has a second round match. Your team has a third round match. And then everybody goes to closing ceremony. So I'll pause for a second on questions there. And there we go. What happens during judging? Okay, we're going to talk about judging very soon. But for the most part, during that period of time, so from 8 o'clock a.m. until 12:15, you will have a judging session for 30 minutes. You will have a practice round for about 5 minutes. The rest of that time, you don't have anything else on your schedule. So the morning is very empty for you as a team. Now, if you have multiple teams, you have multiple judging sessions. If you have multiple teams, you have multiple practice rounds to worry about, right? But each team has one judging session and one practice round. Each team is locked up for about 35 minutes in the morning. The rest of that morning is yours to meet other teams, to make some final adjustments, to prepare for your judging session if it's before, to make other arrangements for the rest of the day. So that morning, your team is locked down for about, like I said, about 35 minutes. The rest of the morning, there's not a lot happening for you to worry about. Taylor and Jamie, anything to add there?
I added in the chat, hanging out with other teams. That's a really good, maybe lower stress time rather than in the afternoon when you're running around between matches and stuff, to just go around and ask other teams about their projects and look at their robots and just let the kids kind of hang out and get to know each other. A lot of teams will bring little kind of fun giveaway items or might bring games and stuff that other teams can come play. So that's kind of the lower stress usually part of the day once you get through the judging, to just kind of hang out with everyone else there.
I would think, you kind of just are squaring stuff away, putting things in your pit, kind of making sure you put up what you don't need, and those kind of things. It's a good downtime to kind of get organized again.
And I'll also add that it's also a good time to, if you know at that point who is going to be on the other table with you for your matches in the afternoon, you can talk to them and see kind of if they're going to do the shared mission with you. The question about the practice round. So the practice round does last from 8:45 to 9:45. However, your team has one match, and that one match will last about 5 minutes. So if I look at my team schedule, my super awesome team, my practice round is at 8:45, but my match ends at 8:48. So really it's only about 3 minutes according to that. So the whole practice round takes an hour, but each team only has about 3 to 5 minutes in the practice round. And like Taylor pointed out in the chat, there will be other practice tables that you can sign up for, but you have one official practice round. And those are on competition tables, whereas the other sign-up tables are not the competition tables.
And those practice rounds are a great time to talk to the referee and get personalized questions and make sure everything works right. That the rules that they know are matching with what you've practiced. And so it's a good time to kind of clarify anything else before competition starts.
I will add to what Jamie said there that really the coaches meeting is the best time for that, because you are limited to about 3 minutes for this practice round. So this is a real practice round, and they have to get the tables reset and ready to go for the next match. So we are treating these kind of like real matches here so that you get that experience. If you look at the schedule, the referees are done at 9:45. So if they are available and are able to take questions, you as a coach can come ask them questions if they're free after that. But take as many notes as you can and get that information so that you can ask those questions later if you need to. Other questions? We still need to talk about what you'll see in judging, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what you'll see in a match. But for now, on the schedule, any questions? Okay, in that case, I'm going to change documents, and we're going to talk about judging. So for those of you who were with us for the judging webinar, you've probably seen a lot of this information. I'm going to kind of go over a high-level view, but the recording we have of the judging webinar is a great resource we have available for you. So you've got that 30-minute window. You're going to go in, and you have 30 minutes for your judging. So here's how a judging session works. You start with a 2-minute period where the judges are going to welcome you in. You have your little intro conversation, and your team's going to get set up. The judging session starts as soon as you walk in the door. So as soon as you're in that room, the judges are already looking at how you're demonstrating your core values. Are you working together to set up your presentation? How are you working together as a team to do things? How are you conveying information to the judges? So from the door is open, judging has started. And during this 2-minute period, you are going to be most judged on your core values of the 3 areas. After the welcome period is over, you're going to have your innovation project. So during that 2 minutes, you only have that 2-minute window to set up. So make sure any kind of skit materials you need, any props, all that is ready to go in that 2 minutes, because you're going to roll right into that project presentation. And you have 5 minutes for that presentation. Again, things you want to make sure you hit on that presentation are what is the problem you are solving? What is your solution to that problem? And how did you share the information, not only about what is your solution, but what research did you do about the problem? So that's kind of a high level view. We have a lot more on our webinar on the innovation project, which is also recorded on the playlist. So that's a great resource too. You are allowed to not use the full 5 minutes, and that time will just kind of roll over into question and answer. You are technically allowed to go over, but remember, the more you go over, the less time the judges have to ask questions. Some judges, depending on the event, will do a hard stop at 5 minutes. Some will do a hard stop at 6 or 7 minutes. You just have to be prepared and have your team ready to say, look, if they call the time on 5 minutes, that's it. You got to stop and just hope you can work what you missed into your question and answer session. So these 10 minutes are really just for the innovation project. And this is going to be something that comes up over and over and over. If the judges didn't see it, if you didn't tell the judges in that 10 minutes or during that time in the room, it didn't happen. You can give them a handout with the information on it. Doesn't matter. If it doesn't come up during the 10 minutes or during the judging session, it didn't happen. The judges are not going to read over every single word of anything you hand them. They're going to say later, oh, I liked this team. They said something about this in their session. Let me go look it up. They're not going to say, let me read through this document they handed me and see anything they might have left out. So make sure anything you want the judges to know is covered here. After the innovation project, we roll into robot design, and it's basically the same format. You're going to have 5 minutes to talk about your robot design. Emphasis is on design here, because you will not have models in the room, and don't bring your own models. You're not going to be demonstrating your robot performing missions. You're going to be talking about how did you engineer your robot? Why did you make the decisions you made? What went into your design and your strategy? The judges don't care how your robot performs. They don't care how many points you can score. They don't care which missions can you do. They care about how reusable are your attachments. Can you use them for just one mission, or can you use them for multiple missions? How consistent is your robot? How many times in a row can you complete this task? Why are you using odometry, measuring wheel rotations, and not using a line follower and a color sensor? So they're going to be asking things about your design process and your engineering process and your strategy. Don't get so hung up on, oh, we can score 1,000,000 points by doing this mission, and this mission. And again, you have about 5 minutes to talk about that process. They really want to learn about your process. And then you have about 5 minutes for question and answer again. Again, we go into a lot more depth on the judging session in the judging webinar, and that video is posted. So that's definitely a great resource to use. So there's your kind of 20 minutes on the robot design and the innovation project. Then there's about a 3-minute period of a core values reflection. The judges are going to ask you more about your season, how you work as a team, what you've done as outreach, what have you done outside of the innovation project and the robot, what makes you better as a team, how have you grown. And then the last 5 minutes, the judges will give you a little bit of verbal feedback, things they noticed during the session and things they want you to leave with. Things that usually happen in judging feedback, for those who are new to us, we always tell our judges, we want you to give the teams something you really liked, something strong that the team did well, and something the team can improve on. And that kind of ends the judging session. So that's your full 30 minutes right there. And once that 30 minutes is done, you are, I'll say 99% done with judging, because there is something else that I'll talk about in a minute. But for the 30-minute session, are there any questions about this right now? So one more thing about judging that I'll say here. Let me stop sharing that. I'm done with that document. The most important thing to know about judging, and I'll say this again, we cover these way more heavily in our judging webinar, are the rubrics. The judges are evaluating your team based on these rubrics. A lot of you have seen these already. I hope everyone has seen these already. If you haven't, these are freely available on the First LEGO League website. We will make sure that we share them with you so that you know where to find them if you haven't seen them already. But these go over, these are the criteria that the judges are evaluating you against. Everything on these rubrics is defined. So you're going to be rated on a scale from 1 to 4, where 1 through 3 have these very clear metrics, and then 4 is just going way above and beyond. So talking about the robot design rubric, this green one here, for example, design. Team produced innovative designs and a clear work plan, seeking guidance as needed. Was it a minimal evidence of an effective plan? Was it partial evidence? Was it clear evidence? And this is all going to come up in the judging session. So when you're practicing those presentations, maybe get another teacher to fill out the rubric as the kids go through their presentation. Because even if the person doesn't know kind of what the challenge was or what First LEGO League is, they should be able to fill out this rubric pretty effectively. But again, we go into way more depth on these rubrics. There's one for robot design, one for innovation project, and one for core values. We go into way more depth in the judging webinar. And at the end of the competition, your teams will get these back, and you can use them as a reference tool to kind of help you prepare for the state challenge if you're one of the advancing teams. Taylor, Jamie, anything to add about the rubrics?
Just those earlier videos you have, we really do a much bigger deep dive into all the details there.
Are there any questions about these rubrics or the judging session? Taylor, I think that is a good question for you to address. I think you are most familiar with how we handle this.
Yes. Yes, if you will send that information just to me in an email, I will get with the judges ahead of time that will see those students and just make sure they're aware. And so we're not discounting things because of a disability. So yeah, we've had that come up before, like students with autism and things like that maybe struggle more with communication. And so I've just let me know, and then I'll make sure the right judges know. So
and this isn't anything atypical. This comes up a lot. As you can imagine, our program tends to attract a lot of students who have autism spectrum disorder. So it's not uncommon, and it's certainly not exceptional in our environment. So it's something that is easily handled. Anybody have any other questions before we go on to talk about the robot rounds?
Drew, you're muted.
Good call, Jamie. So the last thing I want to talk about are the robot rounds. During your day, you'll have your 1 practice round and your 3 competition rounds. So there will be 4 matches you play. And for each match, there will be a score sheet filled out. You don't get your score sheet back. This is something that goes from the referee to the scorekeeper. But the way this works is, Taylor, you want to actually explain how this works? I think you have the most experience on this side of the table.
Former referee and head referee. Yeah, so most scoring for matches is done after the match is over, which does mean you can accidentally undo things if you're not careful. But yeah, the refs are gonna kind of get down with the two kids that are at the table at the end of the match and quickly, but walk them through what they're circling, like, yes, no, or numbers. Refs are not going to know scores. This gets handed over to a scorekeeper who enters it into our scoring software. Coaches don't get the score sheets. You just have to make sure that you've prepped your two kids that are going to be the ones up there initialing off on this, to pay attention and to know, if there's a question that they have or there's something they think the ref marked wrong, they've got to do it before they sign off on it. Because once the kids initial off, it goes off to the scorekeeper and it's like law at that point. But yeah, and then of course you do have like precision tokens that'll happen through the match, but everything else is pretty much just scored right there at the end. Like I said, the ref will go over it with the kids.
And the big thing to remember here is that the only people who ever see this score sheet are the referee, the students, maybe the head referee if there's a question, and the scorekeeper. Nobody else sees this. So coaches won't see this, parents won't see this, most of the staff won't see this. So the other thing to remember, like Taylor pointed out, is we don't score on the score sheet, which sounds counterintuitive. We just say yes, no, what did they do? And then First Lego League has a software that tabulates the score based on what they did and what they didn't do. So it's much easier than having to worry about, did I get 50 points or 60 points and things like that. So that's all taken care of. And so these will be used to calculate scores. And then the other thing before I get to this, are there any questions about scoring the matches? So the tabulating software, the software itself is not, but it sort of is. So there is an Fll Score Calculator that Fll puts out. I've shared that with teams before, but it's been a couple of months now. Taylor, if you can you look for that and post it in the chat? But there is a website that First Lego League has up where you can kind of fill out what you did and what you didn't do, and it will calculate the score for you, just like the scoring software does, but it's not the same software, if that makes sense. But it is also made by FLL. So the other important thing on this score sheet, remember how I said that judging was 99% done at the end of your judging session? That's because the referees are also judging you. So every match, and this is your gracious professionalism coming through. Every match, the referees will evaluate you on your core values. So how is your team behaving at the table? And you'll get a score from 2 to 4. And the way this works, and this happens for each match, and this goes into your judging. This does not affect your match score, but it does affect your judging. Now, the way it's going to work is at the start of the match, your team is going to have a 3. If the referee sees your team displaying behavior that is absolutely great core values, we love to see it, it is above and beyond, they'll bump you up to a 4. If, however, the referee sees significant behaviors that are not displaying of the first core values or of gracious professionalism, they will bump you down to a 2. So your core values score is going to be impacted by your robot rounds based on how you as a team are behaving at the table. And one thing that first emphasizes that a lot of people don't realize is that the team is more than just the students. The team is the students, the coaches, anybody with the team. We are all the team. So if the students are getting out of hand, they can impact the core value score. If the coaches are getting out of hand, that can impact the core value score. So things to be aware of there. Taylor or Jamie, anything to add?
Not on that. I mean, well, I will say years ago in high school and college, I was a referee for FLL, and I, on numerous occasions had coaches and parents kind of after me, if things didn't go their way, or if they just, they wanted to give me instructions rather than the kids, like as a referee, things like that. And I've had parents flat out yell at me, and I was, a 17 little scrawny girl volunteering on a Saturday, just remember kind of where you are and that all these people are volunteers and they're all just doing their best. And, again, that goes back to like the kids have to know what the rules are, what they're trying to do. Like the parents, the adults there can't be the ones trying to give instructions to the referees on stuff. And then Drew, after we kind of get through this bit, I have a few more housekeeping type things to mention before we get off the call.
And I guess I would add, tied on to what Taylor said, is that those things do get, if you act that way, those things do get reported and can be turned back to the judges and say, hey, their core values didn't hold up in the normal robot game. This year we have the rubric to be able to help score that and give a numerical value to that now. So.
And to answer the question about parents specifically, I will say that it's a little bit harder for parents just because they don't get as directly tied to the team. What I will say is that if the parent is going out of their way such that a volunteer can easily figure out where they're coming from, it's not outside the realm of possibility that it would impact you. Now, if it's just a parent like hooting and hollering, that we like to see the parents get into it, but when it crosses a line to where they are berating our staff, we start to get a little concerned about that. Generally, we try not to hold teams responsible for their parent behavior because parents, like I said, aren't as directly associated with the team, but we don't want to discount anything because we can't plan for every eventuality.
I would also add that in that kind of situation, if it's a parent that's really out of hand, like you said, like belligerent with staff or anything like that, I mean, it just might be that we as event directors need to ask that parent to leave. It just, and that maybe isn't a situation where it necessarily should impact judging. Like if it's very, y'all aren't like feeding into it and egging them on or anything weird like that. Like, but if there's a situation where something like that's happening, it just may come down to that rather than it being like affecting a core values thing. Okay, yeah. So in that kind of situation, I think, Lisa, that would be where we would want to just ask them, to leave if they can't keep it under control. But I wouldn't say that situation would affect the team's judging in that case.
I think that's fair. But again, if you have other questions about judging, I definitely recommend watching the webinar on judging if you haven't already. And then always, if you have questions, just shoot us an email. No, it's no problem. Will the robot round tables be plywood tables or the Andy Mark tables? It depends on your qualifier. Be prepared for either. So the other thing to just kind of summarize all this on the global schedule, remember that before the opening ceremony, there's not a lot going on here. This is your team needs to be here, but you probably don't need much else. Parents, there's not going to be much for them to do other than maybe help watch their kids. During registration, that's just for you, the coach. Coaches meeting, just for you, the coach. Judging, that's the whole team. But remember, there's only a 30-minute window for your team there. Practice round, it does last an hour, but there's only about a 4-minute window there for your team. And then lunch is for everybody. Now, everything I just said about having one team, if you have multiple teams, multiply everything by 3. You could have teams judging at the same time or not at the same time. It depends on your situation, but we can talk about that like with you one-on-one. Opening ceremony is for everybody. This is where everybody gets to come in, say hello. Competition round 1 through 3. Everybody's here to watch this. This is the really exciting part. This is kind of what you picture when you think of a competition. And then closing ceremony is our thank you and awards ceremony, and we find out who advances. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So that kind of summarizes us on the schedule. I'm going to stop on that and move over to the presentation again briefly. So we've talked about the schedule, what to bring. So Taylor, you want to talk about things teams should bring and not bring? I know you deal with this more than I do usually.
I was like, Jamie might even really know better than me. I mean, obviously you're bringing your robot, bringing whatever presentation materials. If your team has any, like I said, kind of fun little giveaway items or buttons or something they're going to trade with other teams, like obviously bring all that kind of stuff. I don't know, Jamie's or something like really specific you would think, like, don't forget
all your all your project presentation materials or things you're bringing for that. And then after that, I would say that, you probably want some extra pieces for your robot just in case something breaks or something comes off. I will have, and I'll be there. I'll have extra cables for an EV3 and try and should find and get some stuff for a Spike Prime. That always seems to be the thing that I would forget was a cable to connect to the computer. And so I'll have those at the pit admin. And if you forget that, but that's the thing that I always forgot. I would say power cables. We'll have power cords and stuff usually at every competition. I know at mine we'll have power cords run to the pit tables, but don't forget your robot chargers. Then you may want your cell phone chargers, and then I would also say you probably want some snacks and some water. You definitely probably want something because it's early in the morning. We get started, and maybe not everybody's eating breakfast, so you get for that first little lurch. My kids were always starving or like, hey, I need something to eat. And so you don't want them to go all the way to 11 o'clock, wanting something to eat, and they got so much stuff to go do.
And I'll add, if Jamie didn't say it, he might have, but I might have missed it, but a cable for programming your robot. If you're making adjustments to your programs, which hopefully you're not, but if you are, you will want the hard cable to upload programs. You don't want to be using your Wi-Fi or Bluetooth on the day of the competition because we do limit you in a lot of areas on what you can and can't do with Bluetooth and Wi-Fi. In terms of what not to bring, we've run this before. Don't bring your own table and mat and models unless you're going to make them available for everybody to sign up to work with. We have the competition tables and we have the practice tables set up for that purpose so that we are making it as equitable as we can at the event.
And generally, there's not a lot of space for if every team wanted to come in and set up mat and models. So we usually ask teams not to do that. Like we said, the practice tables, you'll be able to sign up for slots and things like that throughout the day as you need to, versus like your practice round will be like a time 2.5 minute with refs and all that.
And like I think Jamie mentioned, we mentioned in the chat, definitely you do want to bring your robot kit, but if you're bringing more than one robot brick, you need to be careful with that because you can only have one at the table at a time. And for pit setup, the qualifiers will share their pit setups once we get the teams assigned to those events. We'll make sure that the qualifier managers send those out.
And Michelle, mine pretty much is going to just be like a 6-foot table or a cafeteria table, depending on how many tables I can get. The cafeteria tables are just big and take up a lot of space, but so I'd rather go with like the 6-foot table, but kind of working on space and still working on some of that logistics there. And then we will have snacks available at my competitions in Fort Payne to purchase. I got some people that are going to be able to offer that, and then there probably is some games at Fort Payne for sure.
Yeah, so and a lot of these questions are going to be specific to each qualifier. While there are some things that'll be the same for all qualifiers, some things are up to the discretion of the qualifier manager, and so that'll be something that you would want to ask your qualifier manager once we have teams assigned, which that's again coming out on Tuesday. Taylor, did you want to talk about lunch?
Yeah, I have a list of things if this is a good time.
Yeah, this is the end of just kind of on the day. So if you have anything to talk about for on the day, now's a good time to bring it up.
Okay. Yes, lunches. So we have basically a requirement that each of our events, we have to require some kind of box lunch option. So whatever that looks like, and it'll be different for different events, how they decide to handle that. But there will be something where you can pre-order some kind of box lunches, or you are welcome to bring lunches. If you've got a parent that's going to leave and go grab some food and bring it back, things like that are totally fine. We just always, for convenience, want to offer something. And then, yeah, I think pretty much most events will have some sort of concession stand kind of thing going on as well, just in addition throughout the day for snacks and stuff. So that's just, it's going to be dependent. There will be a pre-order option, but it'll depend on the event, like what exactly that looks like. Another what to bring, or do this ahead of time, registration payment. So I know Drew's already emailed out. So we said registration is $100 this year for qualifiers, and that covers all the various costs with running a qualifier. You can bring payment day of. That is fine if that's the way you need to do that via check, or you may mail it ahead of time. In the past, we've tried to route money to the specific events, and that can get really complicated. So we will run it all through First in Alabama. So your check will be through them, and then we will send out money to the qualifiers to do what they need to do.
And I will emphasize that point. It is First in Alabama. This money does not go to First.
Correct. Yes, it goes to our local affiliate, and that's how we can handle it. It has nothing to do with headquarters. So when Drew sends out qualifier placements, you said Tuesday, we will go ahead and send out the W-9 for First in Alabama if your school needs that for payment. If you need an invoice specifically, you can just shoot me an email, and we'll include that in Drew's email too. But you can send me an email and I can get you an invoice if your school needs that, more specifically than just a W-9. But you can mail it ahead of time. You can bring it day of if that's just what you need to do, just one way or the other. So that's a maybe what to bring if you haven't done it ahead of time. Let's see, day of. I know some teams will come via school buses, and some may just be, parents bringing kids, and you just got like kind of a caravan going on. Either way, there should be ample parking. All of our events are at schools. So that shouldn't be a problem. And then one other thing I wanted to mention, because if you don't know, I am an autism specialist and special education teacher. And so I know, and Drew mentioned this, our program does attract a lot of kids on the spectrum or maybe with other sensory issues. And I will make sure each of our events, our event managers have basically a sensory item box, some of the noise canceling headphones, fidgets, things like that. If you've just got a kid who is maybe struggling that day, because I can't make the events less chaotic than they are loud and busy. But I have little things like that. If you've got a kid that needs that, you can talk to the event manager day of, but I will make sure that those are available. And all right, that's all I had on my list.
Okay, so we'll just kind of go through quickly the other two slides just so we cover the information, and then we'll pause for questions. Before the day, again, you want to make sure that you've practiced your robot matches. You're familiar with what's going on there. You've prepared what you're going to know about for your core values and what you've done to demonstrate your core values. You've practiced your robot design presentation, and you've also practiced questions. Make sure you're covering your rubrics. Same for the innovation project. So this is kind of the big stuff to prepare before the day. Taylor, Jamie, anything to add on before the day?
I think it's one of the great things to get the kids to do is just to make a checklist and just have a checklist so you can kind of check all that stuff out as you load it up and make sure that you have everything. So, because it's a lot to bring and a lot to keep up with. So a checklist is a great idea. And I can share one if you don't have any idea what in the world. If you want to, I don't even know where to start, I can share one to you and give you a checklist.
And again, we do talk a lot about some of this in the other videos on judging, and that really the judging one is the big one, I think, where we talk about a lot of this, but that's available on our YouTube channels. The last slide I think I have is about after the day. So at the end of the competition, you've gotten your awards, you've found out who's going to advance. Teams who are advancing will be notified that day, unless we have wild cards, which the wild card teams will find out after the qualifiers are over. That's so that we can make sure that we have a full championship, but we'll talk more about that process after qualifiers are assigned. Teams who are not advancing, we always recommend for coaches, especially new coaches, there are events after yours. So if you go to your qualifier and you don't advance to state, you would be a great asset as a judge at state. It's a great way to learn about how the process works. So it's basically some free development. You'll get a couple of meals out of the deal. You'll get to see the teams that make it to state and kind of what happens there. Anybody, Taylor, Jamie, want to talk about any experience there?
I want to say like Holly is on here, and I think Holly came and judged for us one year when her team or teams weren't going to state, and I feel like you said that was a good experience. Yeah. So the judging, yeah, it's one of those things where the judging process is very entailed, and so much happens kind of behind the scenes other than what y'all see in your sessions, that I think that would be very, very helpful. And of course, we're always looking for volunteers, and so if you're not there competing that day, we'd still love to have you in some other role. And yeah, so I think that's a good way to learn more about how this all works.
It's definitely the fastest way to learn more without having to do an entire extra season before the next season. And the other thing that we always like to tell teams is if your team season is over, if this is after your qualifier, you're done, or after state you're done, just team activities kind of keep your season rolling. There are things that your team can do to kind of build your core values that you can kind of get a start on for next season. You can start figuring out ways to prepare technically for the next season. Taylor, Jamie?
Outreach events are great to keep everybody active, and especially in your area, just going and showing off your robot, going and showing what your team's done to your school board or your city council. Any of those things you can do in season, but you can also do that after season as well, just to keep everybody engaged with what you did at the end of it. So if you did do it during the season, you can go back to them and say, here's what it looks like at the end. And generally everybody's really impressed with the progress that you're able to make with it.
Also, if you have other FIRST programs in your area, if they're FIRST Lego League Explorer, FIRST Tech Challenge, FIRST Robotics Competition teams, finding ways to engage with them in their events, and also the FIRST Robotics Competition, so the high school program, they're regional. We have one in Huntsville in April, the Rocket City Regional, and on the Saturday of that event, so it'll be April, I think it's the 9th, we will demo FIRST Lego League Challenge and FIRST Tech Challenge, and we will invite our FLL teams to come demo that day. So even if you don't advance, I like to invite some teams who didn't get to go to state, because that gives them this other opportunity to showcase and continue working. And then invite some teams that also make it to state too. I just like to get a good mix to come in and show off, and those high school teams can come look at what you're doing, and you can go see the big robots competing. And that is also where we have the FLL Explore festival, so that's their event, and so you can come check that out too. So it's really cool too. So don't think, oh, we didn't advance, we need to take everything apart. There's so much more you can do to continue.
You can also volunteer at all those events too.
Yes, please.
So yes, absolutely.
You can be in the whole community.
And then we mentioned, I guess, the FLL state event. We will also have FTC state. It's a double event. So you're if you do make it to state, or you can volunteer at state, however that all pans out, you'll get to also see FTC teams, even from other states, will be coming in to compete.
And I was going to mention that is when we were talking about games or those things that we do after. FTC will still be having games. So we're going to be, if you're in a gymnasium, FTC's on one side and FLL's on the other. So you're going to get to watch that whole competition at the same time that you're going with your your FLL competition. So any downtime, you'll be able to see what the high school kids are doing with their robots.
And I believe that that's only for your events, though. That's not going to be true at necessarily all of our
Yes,
qualifiers.
the state and the scrimmage at Fort Payne.
All right, so that kind of wraps us up on what we had prepared today. So we got a couple minutes left. So if you have any questions, now is the best time to ask them. Or if you think of something later, you can shoot us an email, and we try to get back to those within a day. But if you haven't watched them already, the other webinars are full of a lot more information. And like I said, we'll try to get these links out as quick as we can. Yeah, so the FLL state competition and the FTC state competition are on the same day in the same place. So you might want to be aware of that when you're trying to budget your time there. That's one of the issues we have with doing a joint event, is that it ties up everybody all day, but that's something to be aware of.
And if you want to volunteer, I can maneuver if you think you have time. So if you want to volunteer for a certain period of time, then that's okay too, as Michelle. We can kind of work that out. But I know on FLL state days, you're probably going to be really busy. So it's kind of just if you think you have time or not. So.
Well, and even cases like that, or even at Hampton Cove or Mobile or whatever, if you've got like some parents coming or older siblings, if I think they have to be 14 to volunteer. But if you've got other people coming that maybe wouldn't be tied up with the team activities during the day that would want to help out and volunteer, that's an option too. I guess we can explain in one of the emails how to go about doing that. But I don't want to, if an older sibling is going to sit there all day and be kind of bored, and they couldn't be volunteering. But yeah, that we're hoping this dual event stuff this year will be good. We've been wanting to do it for a few years, and finally Jamie has the facilities to make that happen. So we'll see how it goes.
Well, if there are no more questions, we will go ahead and I guess turn you all loose. Like I said, if you have other questions that pop up, make sure to shoot us an email, and we will try to get that back. And if it's something we think that everybody will benefit from, we'll make sure to include it in one of the weekly emails. But thanks for those who are attending today. Thanks for those who are going to watch this after the fact. We hope it's been helpful.